and that has kept me going was JT Telese, who is my sister-in-law. She bought me a book that made me very strong, Coping with Losing Your Loved One. And it has taught me, even though I'm alone, there's God up there. There's God who will always look after us. In the word of God, in Isaiah 41, verse 10, it says, "Fear not, for I am with you. Don't be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." That's what has kept me going. But it is a difficult journey. It is a difficult road. It is a difficult path that we go through as widowed women. We've got children that we're bringing up single-handedly. There are no classes that prepare our children for the pain that they will be going through in the absence of their fathers. There are no children to embrace them because they have no fathers. There are no fathers that come into their lives to say, in the absence of your father, come talk to me. You're not saying they should be their fathers, but they should embrace them. This is a very touchy topic of being widowed in the church and find yourself wanting. But in closing, I will say, the Bible says in Psalm 147, verse 3, He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. That is us, the wounded and the widowed women that are in the church. May the good Lord bless everyone that has come up with this program, that will try and close the gap, that will try and heal the wounds, even if they're not completely healed, but we shall be going somewhere. We know that we are being thought of. We are being taken as normal people. We are not sidelined like we have leprosy. We are still human, even in the absence of our husbands. May the good Lord bless us all.
Amen. Thank you very much, Sister Hazel. I can imagine that was not easy to speak about. I can feel your pain. And I really hope that the church would be able to come through for you going forward after this program. Our next speaker is going to be Sister Masabata Mthwecu. She's also going to be sharing with us, as Umam Hazel has just shared with us. Just to welcome her, I'll once again ask for Naledi Orusmanga to please play us a song while we view her profile and see who she is. Thank you. We seem to be struggling with the music. So I will just ask Sister Masabatha bengizoculela kodwa akuvumi namhlanje. So please go ahead. Welcome and thank you for your time as well and your willingness to be a part of this program. Over to you.
Thank you. I just want to thank everyone for inviting me to visit Mamelodi Central Church. But before we start, can you all bow our heads? Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my redeemer. Amen. The Bible says, honor widows who are truly widows. But if a widow has children or grandchildren, let them first learn to show godliness to their own household and to make some return to their parents, for this is pleasing in the sight of God. She who is truly a widow, left all alone, has set her hope on God and continues in supplications and prayers night and day. But she who is self-indulgent is dead even while she lives. Some translations have who is really in need instead of who are truly widows. This is in 1 Timothy 5 verse 3 in the NIV version. While this is an interpretation rather than a translation, it seems to have captured the meaning quite well. True widows and those who have no children or relatives to care for them. Paul makes this clear by saying he's referring to those who are left all alone. His concern for them is that they will not be neglected in their old age. And he suggests that if they have children or grandchildren, it is their responsibility to look after their aged and lonely relatives. In verses 9 and 10, he suggests that the church should care for those widows who are over 60 years of age and have lived a God-fearing life. I assume it was expected that the younger women will be reabsorbed into the married life in one way or another. However, discrimination against and abuse of widows of all ages occurs across a wide spectrum of cultures, religion, ethnic groups, regions, and irrespective of the economic or educational status of the women subject to this oppression. Attitudes to and treatment of widows varies from relatively mild indifferences and social exclusion to extreme mental, physical, and sexual torture, and even to murder. In the context of legal rights, whether enshrined in international law or in the Constitution and domestic laws, widows are often beyond the reach of modern statutes, and many, for various reasons, be unable to access the modern justice system in their countries. The lack of insight leaves a majority of widows in extreme poverty and destitution. Widows and their children are among the poorest of the poor, even here in South Africa. Not only are they denied their basic rights, civil, whether political, social, and economic, but their crucial roles in society, in development, in peace building, as sole supporters of their families have not been recognized. There is a dearth of statistical data in situational analysis of their day-to-day struggles to survive. Government should explore all other alternative methods of collecting such information, such as participatory poverty and demographic assessment studies involving the widows groups through mapping and profiling projects. But I'm glad to announce that that change is on the way as widows begin to organize themselves to be agents of change. Lobby for law reforms are represented in decision making, and now they are beginning to be counted and to be heard. There is a draft charter for the widows' rights, which demands for the elimination of all discrimination against all widows, both within the family and community and public life. This charter notes that all women are equal before the law and that the human rights of women are inalienable, universal, and non-transferable. It notes that in many countries, we as widows, we suffer from low status, from discrimination, from violence, and lack of legal rights. And also that in communities, widows are stereotyped as evil, bringing bad luck, and that social attitudes to widowhood obstruct them from fully participating in civil society. In spite of international and domestic laws guaranteeing equality in inheritance, land ownership, and criminalizing violence to women, widows are often banned from inheriting and evicting from their homes, deprived of all their property, and left in destitute. It notes that widows are often victims of degrading and life-threatening traditional practices in the context of funeral and burial rites, noting that there is no special reference to discrimination and abuse of widows in the Beijing Platform for Action. Noting that widows are key social and economic players in development, reaffirming the important role that widows do and may play in the resolution and prevention of conflict. That it deprives their children of their human rights to shelter, to food, to education, and their rights and the rights of the children. Also, it recognizes the urgent need to mainstream a widow's perspective in all policy developments and decisions, thus reaffirming the need to implement fully all international human rights and humanitarian laws that protect the rights of women and girls, irrespective of their age or marital status, during and after conflict, as well as in times of peace. Finally, it requires all governments to use all measures possible to eliminate this discrimination and to work with widows groups to assess their numbers and their situations. In South Africa, we don't have stats of widows, but that of marriages and divorces. The government and researchers should unbundle the challenges of widows and widowers and create an enabling environment to support them and help them ease back into their social life. As a widow, I suffered a tragic loss of my hubby through an accident. My life changed forever, and that was in 2005. I went from married to widowed in the blink of an eye. My kids went from 2 parents to 1 parent in the blink of an eye. I became a widow, a single mom, and a woman that lost her way. I joined a sisterhood that no one wants to belong to. I became a state that no one wants to be part of. I lost a huge part of my identity and struggled to face each day. I lost friends that I assumed would be there to help me as I struggled to regain my life. Friendships I learned are not immune to grief. Despite what you may think, some friends will leave you when you need them the most. Perhaps they don't know what to say or how to act. Maybe they are afraid to deal with your sadness and grief. Maybe they are afraid that widowhood is contagious and will happen to them. I don't know the answers. All I know is that I'm surprised at how friendships changed when I needed them the most. I decided to ask some widowed friends about their friendships. Do friendships change after their spouses died? Did people treat them differently now that they were widows? I learned that I was not alone. The other widows faced unique but also similar circumstances with their friends. I will tell you some of the quotes. Some women said, my friend admitted a feeling of guilt after my hubby died. Others were saying, the cleaners or the helper or the cleaning lady lost her husband and now she doesn't talk to me. I guess it's because they think because she had lost her husband, she rubbed that onto her. Another one said, I've stopped telling people that I'm a widow. And I think I can identify with that as well. Another one said, you really find out who your friends are and aren't. Family too, it is quite the eye-opener. It breaks a lot of trust. You remind your friends of what can happen. Also, you are technically single now, and they see you are a threat to their husbands. It is hurtful how people disappear. I have a friend that is afraid that her life will end up like mine. That's what another person said. And another one is a woman who had a comment about and who had lost a son. He said, I did lose friends. I was told they couldn't handle it and now know how to act around them or around me, sorry. After speaking to people in similar situations, we realize that in many cases, friendships and grief do not mix. Whether you have been friends for 6 months or 20 years, you do not know how friendships will hold up during a crisis. Some friends step up and the bond becomes unbreakable, while others simply disappear from your life. My approach this afternoon is to first look at our marriages and the behaviors that can ease the pain when developed before widowhood. And I know other people may not understand, but what I've realized is that if women, whilst married, are empowered, it will be easy for them to make that transition when they lose their husbands. And that is why I've invited even women who still have husbands, women who still plan to get married, because this subject is relevant to all of us. And the beautiful thing is that if we as women unite, we will not oppress one another when our socio-economic status changes. Because as a woman, you remain the same, whether you are married or not. I just want to look at what causes loneliness in a relationship. Because some people, you find that you look at loneliness after death, but you've been lonely for a long time. And because you didn't want to address that, it will come and haunt you later. The first thing that causes loneliness in marriage, remember, I'm just talking about people who are still married, is when partners are emotionally connected with other, when it feels like there's a distance between them, there's that lack of connection, which can feel very, very lonely for one or both people. This usually happens after there has been some sort of shift in the relationship. At a certain point, the couple stop being in alignment with each other, hence the distance. Here are some things that can cause partners to feel distant from each other and therefore feel lonely. These are the feelings like your partner doesn't listen to you, that you are not having enough sex, that there's poor communication or lack of communication, the money issues. I know of a lady here who, with the children, they will eat early, and then she will dish him up and put a coal. She will put it in the foil. She will put a coal in the foil and put it on the side of the pap because, the man wasn't giving her the money to buy food, but she will buy food for herself and the children. When he comes at night, he will find the black coal and the white pap. Another issue is that one of life transitions and the day-to-day stressors. But the second one is that there is a lack of effort or attentiveness in the relationship. People get lonely in marriage when they go through the mundane ways of life. They go to work, they come home, go to school, they take care of the kids, they cook dinner, they go to, they go to church on Sabbath, they attend societies, and they go through the regular day-to-day motions. And there isn't any specific time to connect with their spouse. When couples fall into the monotony of daily life without making intentional time to connect as a couple, the relationship can begin to feel stale and lack affection. This can create feelings of loneliness if one or both parties feel like they are not receiving special romantic attention. Another one is that one of the parental responsibilities and getting in the way. Sometimes the couple struggle to separate the role of being a parent and that of being a spouse. Spending all your energy on caring for others and not receiving any dedicated affection yourself can feel isolating, not to mention draining. But lastly, I want to talk about partners that are overly dependent on each other for feeling fulfilled. And this is very critical. In 2020, there was a study that was done on 1,400 couples who were in their 50s to their 70s. They noted that the married couples, they dealt with increased enmeshment, wherein their lives are unhealthily intertwined. When couples exclusively rely on each other as their primary social connection, it can put a strain on the relationship and leave the individual person susceptible to loneliness when the relationship inevitably goes through phases of disconnection. It's easy to fall into the trap of making your spouse wholly responsible for your sense of fulfillment and validation. But people need to be able to feel full and complete on their own as individuals, whether they are in a long-term relationship or not. In other words, your marriage cannot be the only thing that keeps you from feeling lonely. And you will understand as I go on why it is important that whilst you're married, you need to be an empowered woman. You shouldn't be seeking full validation from your partner when you are married. You can't look for another person, whether that is your spouse, to fulfill you 110%. And I will say this very slowly. You have to be happy with you. You have to give your own self joy. You have to develop yourself and have your own career goals and ambitions. You have to have your own passions. You have to know the municipality offices where you pay the rent, or you call them rates and taxes. You have to know the offices of Eskom where you pay for electricity. And it insists on being part of the family finances. You have to learn to drive a car and take yourself to places during your me time. Gone are the days of my husband does everything. I just cook for him, sleep, and support him in everything he does. My life has stopped because I am a wife. Wakey, wakey. You need to develop your own friendships and inner wealth. It's important for couples to not depend solely on each other for their sense of fulfillment and aliveness. If you are feeling lonely, it may not be because there's anything wrong with the relationship itself or with a partner. Instead, it could be a sign that you are missing the strong friendships You are missing the community links, contentedness in yourself that are necessary for any person to feel whole. Remember, in marriage, you need to be whole as individuals, and then you come together and you fulfill each other. Have a mixed bag of friendships, where whilst you are married, make sure you have friends who are married and those who are not married. Have friends in high places and in low places. People who are haves and those who are have not. Have friends with both the young and the older people, as this will carry you through and ease your transition into unexpected widowhood. Trust me, this advice is very crucial, especially to those who are still married, because once you lose your husband, it gets to be easy to transition into that stage. Otherwise, you'll find yourself extremely, extremely lonely. Many a times, the married women believe they are superior to those who have never married, forgetting that one day they will be part of the pool. If this is you, it's time to move your relationships from codependence to interdependence by prioritizing your own wholeness. I'm sharing this because this is part of the core of our loneliness later in life. If the idea of having a feeling of a totally complete life outside of your partner and having goals and relationships outside your marriage that make you feel full, if this idea makes you feel uncomfortable or scared, it's probably a good sign that this is something you need to work on now before it is too late. I want to repeat this again. If what I have said makes you uncomfortable because you can't connect with women who are not married, with women who are in different social stratas, if you can't connect with other people and you feel like all the things that I'm saying don't apply to you, I am telling you, you need to wake up, because if you are not empowered, it's going to be very tough later for you to go through the loneliness that could be experienced. What actually is loneliness and how is it affecting us? Loneliness doesn't mean being alone. I think a lot of us think if we are alone, like in my case, I stay alone in the house, but I am not lonely. It refers to subjective distress caused by a feeling that the person doesn't have the companionship they want. As we've heard earlier on, when the lady is missing the partner, it's because, he misses that companionship. You may not feel lonely even when you are by yourself, while another person may feel lonely even while being in the midst of a crowd. That's what happens. People who are experiencing loneliness may feel like they are left out, they have no one to talk to, or nobody understands them. Other symptoms associated with loneliness includes distress, anxiety, unhappiness, depression, fear of going out, reduced physical activity, and sometimes they have sleep problems. We typically think of loneliness as the inevitable affliction of aging, but the reality is quite different. There has been some research that's been done looking at moderate to severe loneliness in people across the adult life. It was found that there are 3 periods in life where all of us as women experience this severe loneliness. You look at women in their 20s, and that's where, some of them lose their husband. During this stage, People are faced with multiple decisions that they have to make. They have to choose a potential life partner and start a family, settle in a particular city or province. There is a lot of peer pressure, and you often feel that you are doing worse than your peers. Relationships are often in flux. Career paths are still to be determined. It is a time of both great expectation and uncertainty. But what I want us to look into here is that, you know, the stress levels and the loneliness there is something that sort of we carry through until later. If you look at us in our mid-50s, by a person in their mid-50s, they have early trials and tribulations that need to be sorted out. People have married, they have formed families, they have established careers. There's less uncertainties in their spheres, but new angst about what lies ahead. This is a period of the proverbial midlife crisis. Women experience things like your menopause, and men face the equivalent of menopause, which is andropause. And you are in the sandwich generation, taking care of children and parents. This is a very stressful stage again, where, you know, either you lose your friends, you lose your husbands, you are diagnosed with blood pressure or diabetes, and mortality becomes a real threat. Some of us lose our husbands prematurely. But in your late 80s, the last stage, at this point in life, loneliness may in fact simply be the inescapable effect of outliving your peers, friends, and family. It's a very different one here because, you know, you've lived long. Yes, you are happy, you are alive, but, you know, unless you make new connections, it's gonna be hard to survive, because when people discuss, you'll be lost in those discussions. At this stage, all hell breaks loose. Most husbands are gone, if not dying or sickly. I've been looking at Professor, the musical professor who just passed away, and the wife followed the following day, because it's, you know, they were in their 80s, and it's those kind of linkages that we are talking about. These age categories include loneliness for the deceased husband as an individual. You miss him as an individual, as an object of love, as the person making the woman an object of love, as a companion, as someone whose presence organizes time and work, as a partner in the division of labor, as a source of status, as a source of lifestyle. And this is what we were hearing earlier, when someone is seen as the most beautiful. You know, those are the things that we definitely need. Loneliness is also experienced by us because of strains in relations with married friends. As I said earlier, those women see you as a threat to their husband, of an inability to convert secondary relations into ones of great depth, mostly because you look down upon those sets of divorced, never married women, and now you find that the society and your reality pushes you to need them. The very lonely are women socialized into passive membership in automatically encompassing groups. Like, for example, if you are in those marriage enrichment seminar groups who now lack such relations, other widows continue close relations and build new lifestyle, solving many of the problems of loneliness. And loneliness will increase your odds by at least 45% of an early death. Very serious. More than living with obesity or air pollution or alcohol abuse, all these ones, this one has a higher percentage of a likelihood of happening. We are social animals, surviving or survived by coming together. When lonely, you self-isolate, which is dangerous as the brain goes into self-preservation. The lonelier the brain, and when it allocates the images to negative activity, the less activation you get in that region of the brain. You won't accept someone's perspective and reasoning. You will lack empathy. You will focus on self-preservation and not the other person. So loneliness increases defensiveness, depression symptoms, the cortisol levels in the morning. You are also likely to fall victim to lots of dangerous impulsive behaviors. And loneliness decreases sleep stability and hence increases your stress levels. Can anything be done about loneliness? You need to connect to yourself. There is an antidote to loneliness. There's been some research with the new research that's been done. They found that wisdom has a strong negative association with wisdom. This affirms what the Bible tells us. Persons deemed to be wise, based on empirical measures, are deemed to be much less prone to feeling lonely. So in other words, being spiritual, and in fact, most people know that if you are spiritually grounded, if you are always praying, if you are always in those circles, you tend to get out of loneliness quicker than the other ones. And this is good, actionable news. After several decades of research, wisdom can now be scientifically defined as a set of distinct traits with biological correlations in the brain. These traits include the ability to regulate emotions, engage in self-reflection, be compassionate, tolerate opposing viewpoints, and be decisive when needed. These traits are not just measurable, but modifiable. You can become wiser faster, and in doing so, become less lonely now and in the future. In 1998, a lady, Linda Scott, did a descriptive correlation study utilizing about 30 elderly widows. We examined their relationship between the social support and the dimensions of health, the perceived provision of social support and loneliness and the dimension of health. One, she found that there were positive and strong relations between the perceived provisions of social support and the dimensions of health, which means people who are seen to have a strong social network are relatively happier and healthier. They are less likely to be lonely. Two, she also found that there's a negative but moderate relationship between the provision of attachment in social support and loneliness, meaning that people who are clinging to their partners, which is husband who later die, experience much loneliness and they tend to die early. Good examples are the women who married in their teens, who were fathered by their husbands. You know, in the olden days, people used to marry at 16, they were now married. And so it's like you're transferring from your father to the new father. There's no education, you know, that you're not empowered. There you are. And those are the women who found that transition much harder. The third one was the several negative but strong relationships were found between loneliness and the dimensions of health, meaning that those who are very lonely deteriorate faster in health. Because being lonely, you get to be withdrawn, you know, you probably don't eat right, and your mind is always scaling in a different trajectory. And that is why you get to be affected negatively. But what was interesting is that the results of this study support the literature that links, you know, it supports the links of the social support to health and the perception of good health to less loneliness. But what was interesting is that the findings did not support the literature that suggests that the loss of a spouse leads to the experience of loneliness. And this was very interesting. Yes, the loss of a spouse is a significantly stressful life event that can negatively affect social connection, life satisfaction, and mental health. In other study, they also looked, in this other study, they looked at 13 widowed women, looking at their leisure activities and the potential benefits to their coping process. The findings indicated that participants that sought out social groups and leisure activities based on their changing needs, those were better, or they were able to survive. The relationship dynamics with friends changed for these ladies, and it led them to seek new social groups. The analysis showed that the social leisure benefits those women by providing connections with women in similar situations. Remember earlier I said, you find that the old networks that you had, people just don't know how to deal with you. And therefore, you now connect with new people who are in the same boat. It gets to be easier, or who can relate with what you are going through. No matter who you are, relationships are critical to your existence as a human being. So now I just want, in fact, I'm going to jump a lot of things because I want us to look at other things. First, how can you cope with this loneliness? Tell someone. As a newly widowed spouse, one of the toughest things to do is to admit your weaknesses or vulnerabilities. Widows of all ages, young with children and those in their later, they fear the stigma associated with widowhood. They try best to hide what's going on inside, so they appear to be strong and capable in front of their children and families. Coping with loneliness is one of the hardest parts of being widowed. Know that you don't have to suffer it alone. Tell your family, tell your friends and support groups what you are going through. Most people don't know how difficult it is to lose a husband until it happens to them. Explain that you are feeling lonely and ask if they'd like to go out for a cup of coffee or dinner and have some conversation with you. Strengthen those social networks. Another one is you need to spread the word. Widowhood is not contagious. Let your friends and family know that having lost your husband is not something that they can catch. It's not like corona, and it can happen to them just by being around you. Young widowed spouses who've lost their husband, who otherwise appear to be strong and healthy, strike fear in others who suddenly realize that it can happen to their husband as well. Instead of facing their fears, they tend to avoid it altogether and stay away. By being open about your loss, you may be able to salvage a few key relationships. Stay positive. Developing a positive mental attitude towards love, towards loss, towards life can help you to combat the feelings of loneliness that follow the death of your husband. Finding positivity or the proverbial silver lining in the rain cloud will not come easy. On most days, you won't even want to get out of bed, much less face life head on. Take each day as it comes. Some days will undoubtedly be tougher than others, while others may bring you unexpected joy. It's okay to let yourself live alone again and to feel joy and happiness. In time, you'll be able to strike a balance between your grief and loneliness and learning to live again. Another thing that you can do is to volunteer. There are schools, there are hospitals, there's Meals on Wheels, there are grief support, a helpline, there are suicide helplines. There's lots of places, lots of things that you can do. You can volunteer for a day. You can also volunteer in church to just help the AWM department. There's lots that you can do. Another one is you can take a class. You know, you can learn a new instrument. You can learn, take a new course and do a diploma. There's lots that you can do. These will make sure, will help you to cope with loneliness. You can also join a group. There are lots of support groups for surviving spouses that you can find even online. You know, just join one. There's nothing wrong with joining a group, and you can later leave it if it isn't right for you. Just ask yourself if this is the right thing. Is it the right group? And also, are they the right age? I think the previous speaker talked about head demise and not being able to share it with these older ladies. It's true, because you want people of your age group to share your plight with. And also find out if there is any code of conduct in that group. But another one, which I love and embrace, is that take a trip. You know, you can be, go with the AWM retreats, their meditation camps. You can go on cruises. You can also explore, even if it's Pretoria, or you can travel abroad. Just travel. I've heard a new term that this is called solocation. Take that solocation and you'll be surprised because, meeting someone who doesn't know you. I remember I would meet people who'll be like, are you okay? And you find that you open up to people who don't know you, and those people will just sympathize with you, unlike if you talk to people who already know you. So it's something that's very good. Another one is you must go out and visit. A lot of people, you find that because at first, whenever they mentioned your husband, oh, you will cry, and therefore they don't know what to do. So they're waiting for you, So, take that car and go out and visit, or you just walk and visit. When people see you, they'll warm up to you and they'll want to sort of reconnect with you. And you can also invite a friend for lunch. Sometimes those one-on-ones are important. You invite them. There are days where you don't want anyone, especially in that first year. You don't want anyone. It's okay. It's okay. And there'll be a day, you'll have so many anniversaries. One of them is when he died. Another one was his birthday. A lot of things that will remind you of him. But, share it with someone. You invite a friend, you'll all talk about him. And that is okay. Make them talk about the men that you lost. And also read books on widowhood. The reading and learning are two great ways to figure out what to expect when you've lost your husband. Of course, you now know how it feels, but you may know what to do next. You can also seek counseling. Counseling is also good. I remember I went for counseling, and this Adventist counselor said to me, oh, God was watching helplessly during the accident when your husband died. That was my first session, and that was the last time I went there. Because for me, God should be bigger than that. And I felt if this God that's being portrayed by this counselor is that small, I'm not sure if I want to associate with that one. But anyway, it's unfortunate. I wish we were interactive because we will engage on that. Another one is that learn to live life again. Become a widow. Becoming a widow at any age is difficult. The pain and sorrow of having lost your husband will linger for the rest of your life or until you remarry. Very interesting, because some people do remarry, which is good. But, I encourage people not to remarry within those first 2 years, because sometimes you could remarry because you are looking for someone to take care of you. marry because you want that person and you find that, you know what, I want to try something different. But what I will say is that don't look for your hubby in that person because your husband was a unique person. Just look for other traits because different people will come into your life with different qualities. Let me put it like that. So if you are going to be looking for someone, just take your time. Don't do it overnight. I don't know. I'm not sure if I don't know. I don't want to talk about it. So grief is not something to get over it, but you get through it. Time will lessen the feelings of overwhelming loss and sorrow. Eventually, you will feel ready to step out into the world in your new role as a widowed spouse. But this label doesn't have to define who you are in every aspect of your life. There will come a time for you to put that label away and fit it nicely into its own little box of memories. Yes, you are now a spouse who's lost their husband. You are no longer part of that married couple that once was. You've experienced one of life's toughest challenges and you've survived. Reward yourself by learning to live life again in ways that honor the memory of who was once there and who you've now become. The last one that I'm talking about, and I made it last so that it can linger in your mind. It's that one of dating. The society frowns upon a woman who dates again or a widow who dates again. The men may not understand the principle of no sex before marriage, as they perceive you as someone who has been in the game. The society may expect you to marry soon, as it's not acceptable to see an older woman dating or holding hands in the street. Your kids may not accept the men, as they expect their dad reincarnated to be introduced. Remember, you live once. You should be entitled to have a circle of friends once more, but take it slowly. I wouldn't encourage any woman to date. I think that's what I said earlier. Within that first year, I don't know, but don't unfairly look for the deceased husband in others. Sometimes as women, we have standards that are unrealistic. We expect what we don't have from others. You don't take care of yourself, but you want someone who's meticulous, who takes care of himself. Don't do that. Make sure you look for the non-tangible qualities that don't age. I would like to get a perspective from a man who was once married to a widow. I engaged with him and I told him, I said, I would like you to come and share your experience. This is Mr. Chanki Mashinini. I would like you to share some words of wisdom with us. Over to you, Chanki. Please unmute yourself.
Hi, Sabi. Good afternoon, church. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a wonderful experience to be invited in this particular platform as an Adventist. Growing up in the church, being exposed to Adventist institution, being that foul run of being an Adventist, my experience is life is quite a challenge, And there is a song done by Jonas Gwangwa. The title of the song, it says Dipororo. Kids left, went into exile. People came back from exile in 1990, 92. Some parents didn't see their kids and they were pouring their tears. So why I'm bringing this subject into being is that you meet this particular friend of yours, probably you parted 20, 30 years ago. So she was, hey, here's this particular sister. You hook up, you talk. Wonderful experience, you make commitment, you commit, you marry, start afresh, you move along. But my experience is that in that space, there are so many people who are hanging in that particular tree, which is trying to grow, to bud, the sisters, the brothers, the in-laws, the church members, a lot of people, and you're trying to reposition yourself in this particular relationship. And you have kids that are young, looking up to you as a father, and you're trying to really to protect what you have, But the long and short of the story is that we need to accept that as Adventists, we are not immune, neither protected from any situation. I think it's important that we need to be able to move on in life, to be social beings. We don't have this special crust around us that when we have lost a partner, you can reposition and move on. And I know society expects us to do certain things, but life expects us when we are young to have in a relationship, to have a partner, to look forward to going and meet somebody at home, and loneliness is not a nice experience from both sides. I'll tell you my experience. After my father died a few years ago, and I was divorced, I went home to visit my mom, and I was looking forward to have a plate of. My mom said to me, "Your father is at Avalon. Don't ask me a plate." And I said, "Gee, was what mama manch." But these are things that our parents go through after they've lost their spouses. And little do you know that we're gonna go through that path too as we getting older, growing. And it was a rude awakening when my mom said to me, "You can't ask me a plate. Plate to Avalon." But this is a sign that some of you guys are highlighting being depressed. You're married to this man for the last 50 years, and I think I'm quite impressed by this program or this platform. I'm looking forward for the church to invite other men to put their stories. I've got children. I'm coming to a relationship umshad. That's an African proverb. Every woman protects her children. And I come to this relationship, being a man, romantic, wara. Then I forget that I've got kids that I must look after. And this spouse of mine, she ring fence her kids in a very subtle, in a smart way. Mine are exposed, But it's a sign that we are not perfect. We are a program in progress as Christian, and it gives us an opportunity, to realize that we are not sugar-coated. What Methodists are going through, Adventists are going through, ZCCs are going through, but you need to find a balance, that all of us who are in a journey, and that journey is a life's journey. We need to be perfected by God's grace. There's a song that I love by Bill Gates that says, "I'm just a sinner saved by grace." If you could realize that it's half and half makes a full cup, So, yeah, my second marriage was a widow. It had challenges. Unfortunately, it collapsed. There were a lot of pressures around, but it gave me an opportunity to learn. I'm not angry, but I think I have been a learning post for those who come after me. I said, "Hey, my young man, if this happens to you, do this." There are emotional things, you get excited, you've been alone for some time, you meet this sister. But you know what? It's a journey. It's a learning curve. And all of us need to go through that. Am I answering some of the questions by ladies? If there's any question, that would be nice for us to interact and exchange ideas, put my ideas on the platform too.
Thank you, Chanki. I wanted to give Dr. Spabi a chance to say a word or two as well. She has just lost her husband as well. And I think we then went into COVID. So I would just like her to share one or two words to sort of tell us how is she coping with that. Over to you, Toby. Toby, the platform is yours. Okay, I think she's not connecting. But in summary, I think, I didn't do my presentation in the conventional way because I didn't want the focus to be on me, but I wanted the focus to be on the challenges that are faced by all women at the various stages in their lives. So in summary, I want to say being alone and being lonely are two very different things. The pain that comes with experiencing loneliness after the death of your husband will eventually soften. Make room in your life for new experiences, new ideas, new creations, and new relationships to fill the void left behind by your husband's death. I thank you. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much, Sister Masabata. Thank you so much for the wisdom that you have just shared with us. It is really a lot for me, and it's definitely things I've noted down that I should also be doing, because much as we never pray to lose our spouses at any point, it does happen, unfortunately, and it would be good to prepare ourselves socially and otherwise. Thank you very, very much. And thank you as well to Brother Changi for coming through and also sharing with us. It's really appreciated. Thank you very much. I don't know if there is anyone who would like to maybe say a word or two. I mean, there's been things that have been mentioned by both Sis Hazel and Sis Masabata regarding loneliness, rejection, stigma, all these things. What can we do better, as a church, as a community, as individuals? Where can we meet our sisters who have experienced such tragedy? And something so untimely, it's always untimely, it's never expected. But what can we do better? How can we help? Well, they've mentioned how we can help, but which ways can we find to make sure that they don't feel the rejection, they don't feel the loneliness? And she did mention that loneliness is not just being alone, it's not just about being alone, but there's so many aspects to it. But I don't know if anyone would like to say a word or two.
Or maybe can we have questions? Because
Yes,
people
questions.
may have questions. Yes.
Definitely. Questions as well, please.
Mamlava, my hand is up. Are you pointing at me?
Yes, I don't see it. Sorry. You may go ahead.
Okay. Two things that I would like us to look at. One, if we could perhaps look at the comment of Sis Cynthia. I think it was mentioned by Sis Hazel. She's got a boy who lost his father, her husband, and there's no one to talk to. She says it's difficult to be a widow in an Adventist church. Maybe we could get Osma Savata to help us with that. The second issue for both, a question for both Masabata and Sis Hazel. One of the things that widows go through is in-laws, but we never address it as a church. We come and pray and tell the widows that Jesus is with them. But we never practically give them advice or do something practical to fend off the in-laws who want to come and take a house, want to take the car, I understand in Kenya they even come and take your furniture. So how does a widow have to deal with those things? Thank you.
Okay, I will answer the first one. Yeah, I think the first challenge is what I also experienced. I had to raise 2 boys, and I had to make certain decisions as a woman that, we're going to make it easy for my sons to be able to grow in their own space. One was that I had a lot of sort of people who just wanted to come and see how I was doing at home. Others wanted to come and pray for me. Others wanted to bring me some flowers. Others said, I just want to, bring some lunch. We can have lunch together. But I never entertained such people, regardless of their intentions, because I knew how it was going to affect my son. So one of the ground rules was there were no men who would ever come into my house. If they were coming, they had to come with their spouses. But another issue as well is that during the funeral, a lot of Adventist men promised to take my sons to golf, and they promised to teach this and that. And dololo, none of those men came through. It's very tough because as a woman, you don't have those gender-specific traits that their father would have imparted. But, it's very tough. And you can only pray to God to be the father to them. And I think that's what happens to my sons. And I think creating a safe space for them at home was something that they really cherished. Until today, it is something. Oops, sorry. It is something that helps them to finally finish their school. The issue of in-laws,
I think we've lost Sister Masabata. Yes. Okay. Sister Hazel, I don't know if there's anything you would like to say regarding the questions asked by Sis Mine. Okay.
Sorry. Can I still continue?
Oh, yes, you're back. Okay, you may proceed.
Sorry about that. Can I come in?
Yes, yes, please.
I had some challenges here. Well, I'm not going to say much because, I can't, but what I can say is that, there are certain, no, I can't say much when it comes to the in-laws, except as I was articulating it earlier that, you need to reconnect with your family. It's likely, that there could be challenges with in-laws everywhere in all the countries. That said, there is now this draft that's been done to ensure that women are not dispossessed. A lot of things are sort of happening, and even the Constitution does protect women. That is why the Constitution says if you've been cohabiting, I think in 6 months, then you can, be taken as someone who was married to that person. So I think our laws are also trying to protect the women. Yeah. So that's all I can say. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Mama Hajo, your hand was up. I don't know if you would still want to say what you had wanted to say.
Okay, thanks, Osgugu, and thank you for a wonderful program. And also thank you to our panelists and participants. And Mina, I've got a testimony that I want to share about Masabata, our speaker. I'm thanking God for this opportunity because sometimes we only get to talk to what they did when they are dead. So I know Usabi very well. I met her when I was very young and a non-Adventist in America. She reached out to me and I was surprised when I got a call from my lonely room at university. And she said, I believe there's a South African who has arrived. I'm here. Can I take you out? And honestly speaking, she's the one that introduced me to Adventism because I was very surprised when I visited her that she was going to church on a Sabbath. And I got to literally stay with Usabi and her little children. And I saw how she conducted herself as a married woman, the respect that she had for the husband, and faithful, almost as if Sister White, to something that I didn't understand at the time. And we stayed in America, and she was really my role model. I didn't realize then that God was preparing me for the life that I was to lead after meeting my Adventist husband. And I remember a couple of years later in South Africa when Fitzhenry was in the country, that Usabi saw me in the midst of that big gathering. And she was surprised. And I told her the story that happened after we departed, that I met my husband, and she was very surprised. But what I remember about what I saw in her and also her presentation is that because I sort of saw what she did when I was younger, it was easier for me to become a woman of God because I saw how she raised her kids in the fear of the Lord, how they were not watching TV, how they were eating all this thing that I didn't understand called Adventist meat or something. But, you know, I told Sabi, I didn't realize then when I met you, God was preparing me for this. And I was also to be a mother of boys. She's got 2 boys, I've got 3 boys. And I still today, even whatever I did as I was raising my boys, I would remember religiously Usabi praying with her boys and doing this and that, and also the relationship she had with the husband. And I want to say to Usabi today, with listening to you, Usabi, I'm getting very emotional because you have not changed. I remember when I heard Umenzi died, I rushed to your house in the midst of chaos. I asked you where the kids were and what was the school. And I remember that week, I was the one taking the kids to Crawford College every week because I remembered what you would have done had it been my situation. And I didn't ask anyone, but I just kept on taking the boys to school until the end because that's what I saw in you. And today, as a umuntu ongana husband, I see how you celebrate me and you keep on reminding me, be faithful to your husband. Hajo, don't call Ulisiba ngegama. You must say this and that. And I want to say, you are saying all these things to us, but God really planted you for a reason, Sabi, because you were a role model to me when I was unmarried and when I was not even an Adventist. And when I became a mother, a wife, I remembered you. And today, without fear, even listening to you, something tells me that when that time comes, when I don't know who's going to go first between me and my husband, but I know I would have seen you in the act of not being selfish and not being judgmental and reaching out to women at all different levels, because you could have stayed there and said, when Nahajo, you're a young student in America, you can't come into my house, but you welcomed me. And I saw there's no fear when you're married to be happy and to actually interact with single women. I also saw you as a widow welcoming me in, with open arms and telling me and guiding me into what I should do and be as a wife, not even saying, Mina, I don't have a husband. And I'm here to say, if we take God at his word, God truly is able to use us. And I thank God, God used you for me. And I know he's still using you for all of us because of the things that you're teaching us, how how we should behave when we're still married so that life would be easier. So my message today and my learning is that we need mentors. Every woman needs a mentor, somebody that she can look up to at all the different stages of her lives. And thank you so much for the good job that you've done with your boys, Sabi. I'm here to say, I've marveled at how you've been, and I'm listening to you today. I was going to ask you how you did it, and you've just told us there were ground rules, and I take it very seriously. There's no such thing as being a victim after your husband dies. You need to step up and continue doing things that will help you and affirm your boys. And I think that's the reason why also I think your boys are so steady and so successful, because you had ground rules. Ngiyabonga. And to Sis Hazel, thank you for sharing. And to Beauchamp, thank you so much for being a man who can actually stand in the gap and get to tell us the story from the other side. Thank you.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much, Hajo. It's humbling. Yes, but I always tell the women in my church, and some are here, that you need to shed yourself, whilst you're still alive, because on the other side, once you die, there's nothing you can teach anyone. So I'm glad that, those life lessons, yeah. And I've seen how you conduct yourself, Dr. Morella. Thank you, Hajo. Dr. Skhabi.
And so, Gugu, just to add, I think the other thing that I also learned from Usabi, when she was in America, she was still studying, and I was surprised that a married woman can go to the extent you're going to get into all these big programs. And I think 3 of my degrees, like I think my 2 master's degrees and my PhD, I actually acquired them in marriage. And I also want to applaud Usabi for for being a role model, because we all assume that after marriage, our dreams are dead. But in Bonengaye, you can actually study it literally next to your boys. And that's what I did when I was studying. I would study while my boys were also studying. And I just want to say that. Thank you.
Wow. Thanks, Hajo. I can't subtract anything from that, but it's humbling to hear whilst I'm still alive. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mama Hajo. Cynthia Dlamini, your hand was up.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for the wonderful program. Thank you for Sis Mina, who has invited me. Okay, I was in the other meeting, so I joined the meeting late, but thank you for whatever Sis Hazel has said. But my challenge is, yes, I know the law is there for us as women, as widow, but sometimes you are sitting there as a widow, you don't have an idea where to start from. And there's somebody in the church who's doing law, who's doing all this kind of the thing. Being a widow, I'll sit there maybe expecting, I'm just making an example, maybe my elder has done law, whatever, you name them. But you go there and look for help. My elder, when this happened, when the situation is like this, where must I start? You'll find that the very same church or the very same person is folding a hand and you don't know where to run to. So what do you do in that situation? Because, law expects a lot of things. Unfortunately, before my husband passed away, he was in a coma for almost 3 years. But I thank you, Sis Mina. I don't know if she did law or whatever. Constantly so, even when my husband was still lying there in a coma. She was the one asking me, Cynthia, have you done this? Cynthia, have you done this? Even when my in-laws come and take the key of the house, come and take the car, I will phone Mina, this is what has happened. And then she said, no, first thing tomorrow morning, this is where we are going. I'd like to thank her so much. She's been a shoulder to cry on. But now somebody who doesn't have a knowledge, somebody who doesn't know, being a widow, sitting there, the family come and grab everything, but the church is silent. They know what you're going through, but nobody comes to you and says, from here, we are going here. Sometimes we've got advocate, we've got lawyers in the church. They expect money first. You don't have money to go to wherever, to family court and make application. And the process is so long while you are waiting for the law to act on your behalf. So where does the church play a role in that situation? Thank you.
Am I expected to answer, or do you want anyone else to answer?
Anyone who's got an idea, we are helping each other as women, as widows, even those who still have got their husband. Anyone can answer, like, as a church, how do we come in and help this poor widow who doesn't have information about all these things?
I think one of the issues, and I think it doesn't land bad, you are not entitled to church members, to the skills of church members. It doesn't mean because you are a lawyer, then people must just expect you to do or offer a service for free. The government does have enabling structures where you can go, I think it's a legal resource center or whatever, that can help you around that, though it might take forever. But as a church, there is not much that is there is much, but there is not much that's happening. Because I know there's a gentleman who was doing a Doctor of Divinity with Andrews, who looked into us setting up like a widows group, So, but personally, to be honest, I think as women, let me stop focusing on your challenge. I think as women, we need to come together because we are bringing this oppression upon ourselves. If you look at me, I could be a mother-in-law now oppressing somebody, but later on, I'm the one who's marginalized, who needs to be helped. So I think if we can all look at our common thread, the fact that we are women, irregardless of the age group, we could be able to bring change. Because if you are going to say one person, I think in my church, I'm the only one who is a widow because people are still young. So that's the only reason. But I don't see why I can't network with them to be the agents of change. But yes, I hear your challenge. Yes, it's been 3 years. But yeah, unless you go to the pastors to pray for you, there is not much that we could expect from the church. Thank you.
Thank you, Sis Masabata. Toby, as your hand is up. Toby, are you there? You're muted. Okay, let's go with Chima so long. Chima, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to raise a point, and I hope it lands well with most of us. What I want to emphasize is as much as we are dealing with the issues of being a widow, it's important to protect ourselves by having the right marriage contract. And that also helps us also as a church to say, even when you come to us, it's painful sometimes when I sit on the other side as a pastor and then the lady comes and says, I'm a widow, and only to find they've been staying with this husband. We call them husband, but they've been staying together for 4 years. There is no marriage contract. Sometimes we find that our members are staying together. There's no marriage contract. And when these things happen, it becomes a very difficult situation, even for the church to come in and join, because some of these issues have implication legally. So my contribution to this topic, and I'm emphasizing this to men, women, it is important to have things like wills. It is important to have the right contract for your marriage, and to be aware. And sometimes even us as partners, it is important that our families know about our contract, so that if anything happens, they know, and our partners know where to go. Sometimes the frustration comes because some of the partners don't know what is happening, and they come to me as a pastor, and I also I'm unable to even help them because of the legal implication of where they find themselves. So it is a very painful experience. So I know the processes can be long and all of that, but one of the things I would advise to married couples now to say, check your contracts, look at all of those things, because when these things happen, whether the husband or the wife passes away, they are legally protected. As a church, we don't have power on certain issues because of the limitation based on your marriage contract. It is more painful when there's no marriage contract, and us as a church, we can't even have a voice. We can only come and pray for you, because we can't do much. So I'm just saying on that part, we need to just know where we are in terms of whether it's community or property, out of community, so that it protects you, it gives you the rights and everything, and protects you from your in-laws. And us as a church, we can only play a supportive role in many cases, and we can't really say much and do much, but the best part we can do is to advise you before and help you through the process, so that when we find ourselves on the other side, it's easier. And many couples are not aware of this as they get married, and by the time now they're grieving, they're dealing with grief, and then they have to deal with all these technicalities because they were not aware. So I'm just giving an advice to say, as a church, as members, let's find ourselves in a position where we know the legal rights, so that even when you come to us as a church, when we direct you, because sometimes you give an advice only to find that they're not even married. Yes, they've been calling themselves mom kids and all of that, but legally they're not married, and you can't do anything. You can't even take it to the board for discipline or anything, and it affects the partner, the widow, or the husband. It affects the children. So it is important to know and have the right documentation in place to help us in the process and protect us in the process of grieving.
Thank you, Pastor. Toby, I don't know if you would still like to come in.
She says her mic can't open, but she's going to write the comment, and I will be able to post it here.
All right. Okay. So, Chanki, please go ahead.
Good afternoon again. I'm quite impressed by this platform that we are sharing as Adventist community. Maybe it could be non-Adventist people in this space. Allow me to say to this platform, can we widen up this platform, particularly to the boy child, and Ms. Mthwecu, she highlighted the fact that her boys, they were surrounded with some support from the male folks. But I'm just thinking about people who do not have the kind of support. God blessed me with 3 boys coming from a divorce. I brought them up, challenges. The youngest of the boys is graduating on Monday, with BA journalism. It hasn't been an easy task, but these are the things that we men don't talk about. We observe from a distance. I'm not sure what in your but please, I think as Adventists, we're in this crust which is burning us, and given an opportunity. The driver of this platform, can we widen this discussion to bring other men on board? The young man, my son last year, he paid dowry, he's 31. We talk not effectively, we talk effectively in other some of my two boys. So I'm pleading with us as a new parents, young parents, prepare for kids for the next generation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brother Chanki.
Thank
We
you,
have-
Chanki. On a point of correction, I didn't have mentors for my sons. I said people promised during the funeral and they never showed up later. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Masabata. Do we have Toby's question yet? No. Okay, I had asked if our host would be able to unmute her. It seems they can't either. Okay, so I don't know if there's anything else from anyone. This has been very informative. I don't know if we still have any more questions or comments on this topic.
Can I comment? I think
Yes.
it's one thing. We are always good as Adventists to have talk shows. I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, we are here. We can hear you, Sis Masawat. I think she's having connectivity issues.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me? No? I think we have lost her again. Okay. Okay, so I think let's just wait a bit for Sisabi to reconnect so we can hear what she has to say before we close. We don't have any more hands. No, we don't. Let's just give it a minute.
Mrs. Mercy, ufaka lapho la simasho khona.
Yes, she's joining. Asmoja, please go ahead while we wait for Sabi to come back.
Hello, I say Osmoja.
Oh,
we are one, so we share. Yeah, thanks for the wonderful program. You know, I think it's an eye opener in people who are still having their partners. My question is, I don't know where we stand as Adventist men in this instance, where there's a lady who has lost her husband, right? For us to impose ourselves, okay? Start going into their homes, trying to help, even if you come with your spouse, right, or your wife, trying to help, okay, trying to be a father to other children, help them with this and that. Other people may look at you as being like, someone wants to take an advantage of something, So most of the times you tend to stand by the side and be helpless, even if you want to help because of what the society might be looking at. We know that there are people in the society who go out after widows, right? And they actually abuse the system, okay? So I'm just trying to find out, would it help if, Adventist men or men or fathers would come with their partners and try to assist, and how? I don't know. I mean, that's my question. There are a lot of people that would like to help, but we just don't know how to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mashwele. I don't know if anyone would like to answer that.
I think personally, it is not about a once-off kind of support, because with some of us, you find that we are professional women, and therefore it's not like there is a lack somewhere. Because when people come and help, they think you need that flour, you need that milk, you need that. But we need you to handhold the children. Before we used to have a very close-knit social structure where if the man is gone, other men will just fit in. They know that this one will be the one. You report to this one for discipline. You report for this one, for school grades. Even kids, they feel like, there's no loophole. But I think as a church, we are not doing anything around that. And so if both the men and the women's ministries will come together around that, and yes, there are certain things that you would like you to do for us as widows, but there shouldn't be a title of a widow, because you are still the same woman, and therefore, because this thing is so stigmatized, until such time we do something, it is an issue. I think there's someone who says, Dimang, you can't find a tab to raise the hand. Dinong Kekana, Paswana, I think you can. Yeah,
Yes,
you can.
Yes, definitely. Thank you very much, Church. I was with you last night. I think I'm in a different machine. But I want to respond to the gentleman that just raised the question now, where do they fit in? Because part of it is we have to think, how do we help? He's raising very valid points, because as a widow myself, I know that most of my husband's friends were scared of me. They were avoiding me. People who used to eat in my house were avoiding me. And at that time, depending on what stage of grief one is, it was hurting. It was hurting, because these are people who would come to your house, you will feed them, and you would assist them as well, or they will assist you, but now they are AWOL, they are nowhere to be found. In terms of, I think if we are talking about Adventist men, where do they really miss the kids? Because if the kids are at church, do they really need to be with, do you really need to go to the mother's house where you can be suspected? Because I know that I lost a friend and a male friend who had a wife, but I was closer to the man than the wife. But the least I could do was to go and take these boys for holidays to come spend time at my house when I need him. And it was during that time when the young man was visiting my family that one got to know a lot of what is going on in that young man's life, and how much support he needs. Because when he was here, he was free. He was not very used to me, because the father died, they were still young. Now he's a teenager, and
we began to talk, and I didn't know how to bring the subject of his father, but he actually was brave enough to begin to talk about him, and the time I spent with him changed his life. His mother was complaining that he was not going to school and all of that, and when he left here, he got this renewed strength to say, wow, this is what my father stood for and what he believed in. Auntie Edith told me this and that, and now, Mama, I want to be a better person, because I don't think the person I am, I can actually impress my father. And I didn't even talk about what the mother was complaining about her. But I think a lot of the time people think support is money, is financial. And I think this is the kind of thinking that we really need to move away from. When people are hating and grieving, the biggest support is just to be there for them, just to be there for them. You know, reach out. What does it take you to drive? Take a drive around Hartebeers with a particular child of a former friend or whoever, just to talk to them, get used to them, because you will need to reach out. You don't have to be with the mother, because if that is your fear and you are really needing to help. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I do not see any more hands. Yeah, and I guess I can safely close this wonderful topic we've had today. Very informative, very educational. I think a lot was learned today, and I hope we have heard and we will assist whichever way we can. Sis Tozi, could you please come in and close for us? Oh, there's the last hand. I don't see the last hand. Oh, Mama Hajo, sorry.
Yeah, Mam Laba. I think this topic and the discussions that were done are very, very, very valuable. And I think, you know, if we could be talking about this, you know, often, and actually, you know, as takeaways from these discussions, we go and implement whatever we are able to implement. My comment, you know, coming at, you know, the tail end of the discussions, I think as parents, as we are alive, the issue of relationships is very, very, very important. You know, as married couples, it's important that we relate well to people, including our in-laws and our in-laws, you know, on both sides, including, you know, our neighbors. We need to have, you know, good relation. And I'm not saying we go there and become friends, you know, with people unnecessarily. People, you know, in church. Because some of these relationships that we do as couples, you will be surprised that they begin to pay dividends when one of us is no longer there. You know, the people, I've been listening to Mapaswan, you know, what, you know, the relationship that she had with this gentleman, the deceased, you know, gentleman. You know, when this gentleman was actually, you know, passed on already, lying in the grave, the relationship that he had, you know, with her remained, you know, being of value, you know, to the. So I'm just saying, you know, when we're still together, never think that as a couple we are an island, and we are self-sufficient and stuff like that. Let's be good to people. Let's relate well. Let's plant, these relationships, and it's not just for that. It's also a godly way of living, to relate well to people, to preach to them, and so on. But I'm saying those relationships can actually, remain babysitting whoever remains when one goes. That will include, your spouse who's remaining. That will include even your children, who are remaining when you are long gone. Cultivate, these relationships. It's good for you when you're still alive. It's good for you when you're dead. It will be good for you when Christ comes. Yeah. That's me. That's my 2 cents, contribution to the discussions. Thank you.
And I think also, just to add, I like the comment that said, but we meet Rona as Adventists. We're lucky enough to meet the whole day. So if there's any chance to meet a child, for instance, for the males, because I agree with that it can be seen as a controversial move, but fortunately for us, we've got access to all our children, especially Kokereken. So just that day in church, also on Sundays when there are activities, it's good enough even to avoid going to somebody's house, because his comments about the stereotypes around a man visiting a widow, it's actually true. So I think, Rona, as Adventists, there's platforms and days where we can actually spend quality time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Melinda Tamaralan. Is there anyone else? I don't want to close the platform again.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
To the church, the married women get to oppress the widows because they think they always feel insecure in their relationships. And I'm saying, why is that the case?
Barsugela.
I was married as well. I was never insecure. But when people are on the other side, you start to see things differently. It's okay if they can't answer. It's just food for thought.
Can I come in?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Mama, I don't think widows need to make this their problem, actually. The fact that they are oppressed, or because that is an issue of insecurity, and it happens whether someone is not a widow. It's not just to the widows. It happens across board. Unmarried young women will face it with an insecure person, and so on and so on. I think just because someone has experienced loss, perhaps we can also associate it with the fact that it's oppression of widows. The question of insecurity happens across board, even married women towards other married women. It happens. So it's not just a one way of looking at a particular group of women. And I don't think as widows we need to make it our problem. It's their problem if such a thing is happening, because, and I'm not assuming that widows are also innocent, good people. I don't want to assume that, because yes, in many cases they can be threats to other people's marriage. We have seen it. We live in communities where some of these things have happened, and I think all what we need to understand is that grief is a painful thing, and all of us, we are not prepared for it. And sometimes even the other side where people are still together, they don't even know how to deal with us. They don't know what is the right way to deal with us. And there's a lot of stigma also in our communities, even in the church around widows. So sometimes this kind of avoiding, which perhaps we can construe as oppressing or avoiding us, it should be understood within that context of the stigmas that goes around, and it should be understood in the context of people not knowing what to do with you. And it's normal when people don't know what to do with you or how to treat you. The best they can do is to stay away, and rather than be in your life and make things difficult for you. That's my 2 cents as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have received a message from Toby. I believe she has problems with her mic. But her message says, she's asked me to read this. Her message says, I must say that you will never know the pain of losing a spouse until you go through it. It is a roller coaster ride, but it is good to know that God is ever present, always with you. Oof. You need to be in communication. My mouse is defeating me. You need to yourself to him, and he is the ultimate healer. This had been a fruitful and helpful discussion. May we have more of these healing sessions. God bless you all. That's a message from Dr. Sahad. Thank you very much. Sorry, I'm trying to read, but the message just keeps going up and down for some reason. Thank you very much for that. Thank you to everyone and all the contributions. I just want to check quickly if we have any more hands. No? Thank you very much for all the contributions. Thank you for the discussions. Thank you for the wisdom. I really cannot thank everyone enough for the participation in today's program. It's a unique one. It is not one that personally, since I've grown in this church, and I've been in this church forever, I've never really had a time where we would sit down and discuss about widows. So all the stigmas they've spoken of, I have seen from a distance, but I have seen them. And I'm very glad that Mamelodi Central stood up and had this discussion. Thank you very much for that. In closing, Tozi, please come through and please close for us.
Okay, thanks. I would like to also greet everyone who's joined us in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. I would like to thank you for joining us for this program, for this whole weekend when we're talking about invisible women and the invisible problems that they are faced with. I would like to thank all our guest speakers, Professor Paswana, who opened the Sabbath for us yesterday, and we also want to thank Elder Mthwecu, who was with us today. As I was part of the organizing committee, as we have all said, this is one of those sensitive topics. It was not easy because we realized that this is a sensitive topic. We might be opening old wounds, but then we realized that it is something that we need to talk about because widows are part of us, and at times they do feel lonely and they feel invisible. I actually thank the speakers that were here. It's as if they were part of all the consultation that we're doing and when we were interacting even with the widows that we have at church, because they said they do want us to talk about loneliness, about support from close friends, about depression, difficulty in social interaction, and poor relationship with in-laws.
which today we have somehow touched in most of these topics. I know it was just a touch and base. These on their own are very broad, but at least we've managed to touch some ground on them. So it actually shows that this is definitely not a once-off program, and we are going to work onto that as the leaders of the church to make sure that it's not a once-off program. We'll make sure that we'll continue with these topics under the Adventist Community Services and Family Ministries, as well. We were also planning to have this one. Also, as I was part of this organizing committee, I became interested because I knew on the 23rd of June, it was International Widows' Day. Then we said, even when we are arranging this the program that we have, we want the widows themselves, our own widows from church, to actually come and talk to us, you know, and so that we don't treat them as those people that are there on the side. So we really thank them for being for coming on and coming on board. We thank you, Sis Hazel, for coming on board, sharing your experience, being vulnerable, so that also we must also learn. And as I was also just logging in different also other churches, as listening when they were talking about this widows program this weekend, I also logged in at Peniel Church, where they also had a number of people, like they had younger widows, they had older ones, and it was emphasized. There was also Pastor Chacha also was there. They all emphasized that importance of that support, that aftercare, after the whole ordeal has happened, that the people do need the support. So what I'm just saying is that really what we have started today, I pray that it doesn't end today. It's something that we continue with. So I would like really in a special way to thank you, the organizing committee, to thank you, Elder Zondi, to thank you, Sister Mekuto, Sister Sbande, Sister Ngalishane, Brother Koise, and Brother Rampisa, and all the other people that we consulted, that suggested the speakers, that gave us the numbers. Really, if it was not for all of us, this program could have not been a success. And I pray that as a church, we hold each other together, we support each other, because really, if our status today is married, if I'm married today, really it's just a matter of time. Being a widow, it's something that's going to happen at one time or the other. So there are other people who never got this exposure that we're having. But I think we are lucky. We won't know how it will come and what will happen, but we are lucky. At least today we have a discussion of this nature. So really, it's like, thank you is not good enough or is not enough. I really thank you to all our guest speakers. I thank you, Professor Paswana, for joining us yesterday and also today. I thank you, Elder Mthwecu. I also appreciate, you know, when I called you, you know, when you call a person and you've never spoken with them, and when you interact with them, you find a very friendly, a warm person. I really thank you with that. You made it easy to interact with you, and may you continue for being willing to work in the Lord's vineyard. Thank you very much. Thank you for the work that you have done very well. And also we thank you also, Brother Tanki. Also, you did not know us as Mamelodi Central, but you came and you shared with us. We really need these forums, and you've made it clear that when it comes to things of widowhood and what, it's not only something that affects women, it affects us both, men and women. So we all need to support each other. And also, as we're planning the program, we did also want to speak about the matters of when a person is deceased, doing the wills and all that. But it's something that we're also going to touch on in our future programs. So what you also touched on, Pastor, it's something that we also we wanted to talk on. So thank you very much. Thank you everyone who have stayed up until this time. We really thank you, and we appreciate your contributions and your presence. At this time, I'm going to ask Pastor Mkize, can you please close for us in prayer? Thank you. Pastor Mkize, are you there to please close for us in prayer? Elder Zondi, can you please close for us in prayer? Elder Zondi?
Good afternoon, Elder Mapanga. Elder Zondi is not around.
Okay, can you please pray for us, Nomfundo?
Okay, it's fine. Cela zwalamhla sithanda zendlu neselungileyo Jehova ngithanda sakubonga ngoba nathi sibonga Jehova ngeprogram eminingi ukuthi wasipha yona. Cela usize neselungileyo sibe useful Jehova ngoba sikwazi ukusiza abantwana abafuna isikhathi Jehova ngoba sicohlana sonke Jehova ngoba kuze phana phakade. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone. May we all have a blessed week. Thank you.